For anyone new to NextGen, my name is Catherine and I work for Regional Development Australia, Murraylands and Riverland. And NextGen is an initiative of the Regional Development Australia, Murraylands and Riverlands, and it is also co-organised with the rural city of Murray Bridge. I am joined by my co-hosts who are both hiding in the background, Kate Winky from the rural city of Murray Bridge and Annalise Gates from RDA, Murraylands and Riverland. We are also joined by Courtney Blacker from Commshake Media Engagement to present on our topic today. Before we do get into it all, I want to welcome everyone to our first NextGen event of 2020. Who would have thought that the very first event would be happening in July? At the beginning of the year, we actually did meet with a small focus group of professionals from different industries and stages of their career. During this chat, we asked them what value they want to see NextGen provide within our community. And a fairly common trend that actually came out was around professional development and actionable advice. We know that our region has access to a wealth of knowledge and capabilities, and we have decided to shift into a space that can be a resource for knowledge sharing and personal growth. Now, we all know how the first few months of the year went, and with our first networking event set for April, we unfortunately had to quickly cancel it. However, we are really excited to capitalise on the opportunity to shift and dive straight into a more topic-focused event, starting with our webinar series. So today's webinar is going to be the first of four we will be presenting within our Enhancing Your 2020 Vision series. This series came from us realising something really unique about presenting in the month of July. We are officially at the halfway point of 2020. This year was one that everyone was quite excited about at the beginning. It's a new decade. It's, you know, the roaring 20s, if you will. And if we did learn anything, I guess, looking back from 2010 and how progressive the last decade has been, we knew that this decade would be revolutionary. But what we didn't realise or imagine what would happen when we were looking back in January was that the first 6 months would be as challenging as they were. So now that we are at the halfway point of the year, it is an ideal time for reflecting on not only what we can learn from the last 6 months, but also how we can be more effective in what we do moving forward. Throughout July, we will be bringing together 4 different topics and looking at how we can enhance ourselves and our businesses in a 2020 context. We'll be looking at communications and marketing, business development and planning, navigating challenges and being courageous in adversity. And we will also cover how we can lead and with impact and influence into the future. So welcome along to our journey. And on that note, I would like to formally introduce you all to today's speaker and topic. We are joined by the powerhouse expert, Courtney Blacker. Courtney is the managing director of Commshake Media and Engagement. She launched in 2016 her business. She has an abundance of knowledge, and after working 17 years in stakeholder engagement, PR, communications, and social media marketing, we are sure that we are going to suck as much of that knowledge out of her as we can tonight. I will just mention that Commshake is an award-winning small consultancy, which is an absolute tribute to the amazing leadership and advice that she has for her staff and her clients. So we're really excited to get access to that. She does take on clients across all industries and is an expert in finding creative solutions for any complex messages a business needs to get out there. We are super excited to be hosting a live chat with Courtney today, and we will be recording it and distributing it later for everyone to watch back or to forward it to a friend if you want to do that too. I do just ask before we do get into it that everyone please keeps their microphone on mute during this session. I recommend your speaker view, which you can see in the top right hand corner, instead of a gallery view, as that will just allow you to see her. And I also highly encourage everyone to also use the chat box. We will be watching the chat for any questions that you have throughout, and I will also try my best to integrate them in as we go. Hello and welcome, Courtney.
Thanks, Catherine. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. And I can see a lot of names on my screen as well of people that I know. So hi to everyone I know and to the new people tuning in as well. I'm excited to get stuck into it.
Wonderful. So firstly, I do want to ask you if you could please tell us a little bit about yourself and Commshape, and maybe also the two biggest highlights or lowlights from your career as well.
Yeah, okay. So look, a little bit about our business. We are primarily a public relations company. We have an office here in Murray Bridge. We service about 45 clients at different levels in a range of different work. So for some people, we are doing things like trying to get the media published. So you can see up on the wall in the background, we pick up all sorts of media coverage across Australia and across the world for our clients. We also help them out with social media marketing. So for some of our clients, we take on and literally run their social media accounts. For others, we just offer them support and advice on different campaigns. For some big organisations, we help with communication planning. So that's everything from digital newsletters to print brochures to rebranding to websites to blogging, and you know, a lot of different things in between that as well. I began the business in late 2015. I was heavily pregnant with my first child and was finishing off a comms plan actually as I started going into contractions. So that's an interesting story for you, and obviously put a pause on the business for a few months to start motherhood, and then dove back into it I think 12 weeks later. So, and since then, that was late 2015, opened an office here in Murray Bridge late 2016, and now here we are. We have got 4 staff, about a dozen subcontractors that we use. We're about to knock out a wall next door to create a bigger office and bring on more staff, and seen exponential growth. So really, really lucky in terms of the way that we've been going. In terms of biggest highlights and lowlights, certainly the 2 biggest highlights were, number 1, surviving year 1. There's a lot of data out there. If any of you guys are new business owners, there's a lot of data out there that you hear when you're entering into business mode, that most businesses don't survive their first 2 years. So surviving year 1 and year 2 were a big deal for me. And then the other highlight was last year we actually were awarded South Australia's best small PR agency across the whole state. And that wasn't just for the regions, that was up against all of our metro counterparts as well, which was pretty amazing for a little regional agency. And we also then went into the draw, we were a finalist in the national public relations awards as well, and we didn't win that one, but we came away with a commendation as well. So we were highly commended from a national perspective. And in that same month, I think we found out that we helped one of our clients win a state tourism award as well for a major campaign we worked with them on. So that was, last year was enormous for us. And it's the growth isn't stopping, and the madness isn't stopping. But lowlights, in the notes here, Catherine, look, if any of you are business owners out there, it's incredibly stressful to run a small business, especially if you're in startup, and if you're doing something completely new. So you know, if you're buying an existing business that's out there, and you know you've got clients, and you know you've got regular income, and all those sorts of things, it's you know there's something to work towards. But when you're brand new, and you need to be able to earn income to pay a mortgage or survive, it's really, really scary. So the stress that goes along, especially in that first 18 months, was definitely a low light, but we're here now, and the stress is far more manageable. And probably another low light for me, and this is just in business in general, is just losing good staff. You know, I put really great value into building my staff and creating them as assets for the business. So I lost a really great staff member early on, about 18 months into the business. And yeah, it broke my heart a little bit, but you know, it was the right thing for that staff member to do, to move on and to leave. And she's gone on to do amazing things. But certainly in business, when you lose great staff, it is absolutely devastating. So that's probably it.
Beautiful. I'm going to use what you were mentioning around surviving year one of your business as a way to kind of lead into my first question, and that's actually what the first piece of advice you would decide to give a young entrepreneur who might have limited marketing knowledge but really wants to grow their marketing efforts.
Yeah, and it's a big question, because every new client that I talk to comes to me saying, I need to be on all of these different social media platforms, and I need to be doing this, and I need to be doing that. And 9 times out of 10, I pump the brakes with them quite dramatically and ask them to stop and think about trying to profile what their business is and what it's going to mean to their audience. So the two, probably the key things, Catherine, are really around understanding really closely what your product is and why it's going to be unique for people. So in marketing land, we talk about having a USP, which is a unique selling point. So trying to understand what your unique selling point is for your product or service is a really, really important one. And then once you've got that, you can go on to then define who your audience might be. So for me, you know, my unique selling point is that we've got the expertise that other people in the city have, the same level, probably more, I would say, but we're regionally based. So we understand regional people, we understand regional issues, we understand the culture of regional people and the relationships that they value. So we're really unique because we get country people and regional people. And then you want to go on to kind of use that to start to create a brand for yourself, or to build a brand for yourself. So a lot of people think a brand is simply just a logo, but it's a whole lot more than that. And really interestingly, what you want a brand to be is what people think about you when they're thinking about making a purchase or a transaction, or coming and getting on the phone to you. Or if you want to kind of have a go-to statement around what a brand is, it's about what people say about you when you're not in the room. So really interestingly, we've tried to build a brand around trust, because for us, if people trust us and they trust we know what we're doing and that we've got their best interest in mind, they continue to work with us. And there was a survey that was released recently that talked about what brands Australians trust most. And I found it really interestingly that the number one brand they trust most is Bunnings. And so when you look at what Bunnings do with an example of their brand, they are very much about friendly faces, in an inviting environment. They are friendly. They're always there for you on a Sunday, you know, when you want to get out in the garden or you want to do home renovations. They're very much around being there for you. And that's their brand. And so when people think about making a purchase of Bunnings, if it's not just a practicality, the reason they might go there as opposed to going somewhere else is because people feel like they're going to get that extra level of service when they go to Bunnings. So, and you know, I could talk through a whole range of other brands, but we don't have time for that. So
we are limited.
So I'll let you ask me the next question, Kat. I'll probably
That's great. I will, just while you are on the topic of brands, I think that is a really great thing to mention, especially in a 2020 context, because there are always so many digital trends going around, and I often see on the news or I hear on podcasts around people jumping on a trend and doing something because it's a good brand image. I wonder what your opinion or your advice is around jumping on viral trends or associating your brand with some sort of trend is the right thing to do for you or not?
Look, it depends. It really depends on what your product or service is. So if you are an agency or a business who needs to be in terms of people understanding your value. So if you need to be up with current trends, or if you need to be seen as digitally savvy, or if you need to be seen as young and contemporary and all those types of things, then absolutely you should jump on those trends, because then it's a direct reflection that you are engaged with what's happening right now. It's also a great way to have a little bit of fun with your digital media as well. And as you guys know, 9 times out of 10 things that go viral are because they are hilarious, and because people are poking a little bit of fun at themselves. And Australians are really well renowned for not taking ourselves too seriously. So anything you can do to embellish that on social media is an absolute win. However, if you're like me, and really your audience is about reaching out to other corporates or CEOs or people who are managing contracts and those sorts of things, then it's less important. If you want to have a bit of fun and do it, or if you want to demonstrate your strength in understanding trends or whatever it might be, then absolutely go for it. But it really depends on who you are, and it depends on what your industry is as well. So, I mean, if you're in health, and there's a really great trend going around with, health workers with their face masks, in their blue gear, doing a dance in the hallway at the hospital, then absolutely you should have a go at that, because that's relevant to your industry. It's trending. It shows that you're human. There's so many different things that can come out of it. But if you're an accountant, I wouldn't worry about it so much, unless you are renowned for being pen pushers and you want to build your personality. Then maybe you could have a go at it. So just before you dive into those trends, think about what you're trying to tell people by being a part of it.
Yeah.
And if you can't see the outcome, that's probably a waste of time.
Yeah, I love that. And I love how it kind of does go back to, does it align with you, and does it align with what you want your brand to be as well. Moving, I suppose, into another area and a little bit more into, I guess, creating a marketing plan or strategy or campaign. You do have a lot of experience with that, taking on a lot of clients' marketing, and I wonder if you could advise some of the people on here today around the key elements that you might recommend to outline prior, or maybe some probing questions even that you ask to massage out that skeleton framework of a marketing plan to make sure that any campaign that you deliver for your clients deliver on the message and to objectives.
Yeah. I mean, look, the first 2 points are really clear. It's those things we've been talking about. It's about understanding who you are as a business, so really nailing what your brand is and who you are and what you want people to say about you when you're not in the room. Number 2, and equally important, is about mapping who your audience is. So there's very few people out there that have a general public audience. They don't necessarily want to appeal to everyone. So I can see someone in the group here who is specifically focused on children's physical development and speech development and mental development. So their target is 9 times out of 10 going to be mums. So all of the work they should be doing in the public sphere should be very focused on targeting mums and parents in general, I guess, at different points, and maybe some childcare workers or other key stakeholder groups who are come into contact and have a serious interest in the development of young children. But at the same time, if you're a photographer and you're focused on making the big bucks out of weddings, then you should be targeting people at that age group who are likely out there looking for a photographer to do their wedding at that point. And again, the bride is most likely the one to be the decision maker in which photographer they go with. So you can really nail who your audience is and target what you're doing with those people, because there's, you can go and you can pick up and you can run an ad in the paper, But let's be honest, not many people who are reading a print version of the paper in their hands at home are probably going to be looking for a wedding photographer. So it's about nailing your audiences and then understanding where they're getting their information from, and then getting their attention there. Or, you know, as they say in the industry, disrupting their behaviours on whatever platform that might be. So, you know, fashion labels, there's a reason they're all on Instagram, because the most popular audience on Instagram is 16 to 45-year-old women, the biggest consumers of fashion in the world. So that's why they're big on Instagram. Whereas Granny and Gramps, they're on Facebook, because it's an interactive place. They can see images of their grandkids. They can, you know, look up the best caravan parks to go to. They can make ridiculous comments about with their friends on there, all those sorts of things. So nailing your audience and trying to target them as specifically as you can makes a huge difference to your upfront efforts. Otherwise, you're going to waste a lot of time and money marketing yourself to an audience who doesn't give a toss.
Yeah. What if you're just came up with this brilliant idea and you've decided to enter the world of entrepreneurship, and you're thinking to yourself, oh no, I don't know who my audience is yet. Do you have any tools that will help you unpack who is that audience?
Look, there's a lot of things you can do. I mean, you got to do your research before you go into that space. So look at who else is doing what you're doing, and who their audiences are. And so there's a little bit of stalking involved, and you can go online, you can read consumer reports, all those sorts of things. So understand who's likely to buy your product, and do the time to do the research. Another great thing to do, and we do it all the time, and it's a little bit old school, but it gets incredible results, and that is to set up some focus groups. And don't make those focus groups with people who are your friends, because they will not be honest with you. So get some objective focus groups set, get them some wine or some beer and a cheese plate, ply them with it and ask them for honesty about your product, and get some feedback that way. Or you can do it digitally, set up a messenger group and ask some people. They can be acquaintances, but you don't want them to be your close friends, because your close friends are in your corner. They want you to succeed. They're not going to be as honest with you as what you need for your marketing outcomes. The other thing I will say to you guys as well is, one of the greatest things you can do in early startup phase is to test things and to run pilot campaigns and pilot programs and then evaluate them. We do it with absolutely everything we do, and we continue to learn all the time. So, you know, we are like plan, pilot, test, evaluate, improve. Plan, pilot, test, evaluate, improve. And we do it consistently. And just last week, we sat down as a team and had a full evaluation session. What's gone really well, what hasn't gone well, and why, and how are we going to make changes moving forward now that we know all of these things. So vitally important, and there's nothing wrong with testing things in the market. Dip your toe in, run a social media ad that targets 40-year-old women, and if you don't get any attention from it, change. No 40-year-old women like our product. We're not going to waste our money trying to connect with them from now on. Let's go to another market and try with them. So just test things out, and you can do it pretty cheaply as well.
Now you have mentioned the word social media, so I am going to jump into that space because it is a big one. So everyone is generally on at least one social media platform, but it is a very complicated space, especially to cut through the noise. What do you find is some really good key tricks or tips as to how to maintain your brand's presence within the social media news cycle, or how can a business even use social media algorithms to their advantage?
Yeah, look, the key thing with algorithms is don't get too set on how they work, because they change. They used to change maybe every couple of years, and now they're changing, you know, every couple of months. So if you set up major campaigns and you invest too much on their proviso that the Facebook or the Instagram or the Twitter or the LinkedIn algorithm works like this, then you could potentially be investing money in a place that's only going to change. So there are some core elements that you need to understand about the algorithm on social media, and that's specifically with the two most popular ones being Facebook and Instagram. So Depending on who you are and your industry and how often people are likely to consider making a purchase or a transaction or a conversion with your business, that's kind of relative to how often you should be posting or thinking about posting. So, I mean, I can say regularly, but regularly means something different to everyone. So, I mean, you can post every day, but you can post a couple of times a week, and that's also equally fine. If you are in hospitality, so if you're a coffee cafe or something like that, and you are wanting to get people in once or twice a day, then there's no reason you can't be posting once or twice a day, because you want to interrupt people in their social media feed and get them to consider purchasing with you. If you're a fashion label, it's the same thing. People sit at home at night on their phones, internet shopping. You can disrupt what they're doing and you can get into their feed and make them buy with you. So there's no reason that those sorts of heavy consumer driven type industries can't be posting once or twice a day. But for others, it's just around the value of what you're putting up. For others, it's, you know, I wouldn't post more than once a day unless you are high consumer driven, because you're just going to annoy people and they're going to unfollow you. But if you've got great pieces of value and great offerings, and, you know, I say it all the time, content is king, because it is. And people, you know, some people shy away from that. But if you've got great content, keep reposting it. And the really important part of that, and the point that I'm trying to make, is with the algorithm, you need to post regularly. So, you know, minimum twice a week, I would say, for a small business, because what that does is it makes people engage with your posts. So when we say engage with your post, that could be liking, commenting, sharing, even just hovering over it for a while or keeping it on your screen for a while instead of scrolling through. So I think it's about 3 or 4 seconds. If you're there, then that's considered an engagement on some platforms. Then what that does is it tells whatever social media platform you're working on that people like you. So for me, for example, or let's say I'm a coffee place, and I pop up a picture about someone, you know, brewing a coffee in the morning, and then and then 5 people engage with it, or then what Facebook or Instagram or wherever it's gone is going to actually recognize is that people want to see that stuff. So the next time I go to post about it, it's going to put it in front of more people who are like them as well. So the platforms are really, really intuitive. And if you're putting something up that people like, then it's going to like you. And the next time you want to put something up, it's going to put you in front of more people, or back in front of the same people who engaged with it last time. So if you're not posting anything regularly, then you're not giving that platform something to work with. And you're not giving them the opportunity to go, do people like this content or don't? And what should we do with it? Am I making sense to you there, Kath?
Yeah, definitely. It does come back always to, you know, the consistency and that continuity in your posting. I will touch on, because I think a big challenge sometimes does happen, is finding the time to set up and schedule those posts as well. Like sometimes it can be quite time consuming, and if you can block out those few hours at the beginning of the week for the entire week, that can be a little bit more beneficial to make sure that you've got that continuity. Do you have any recommendations of what you might use in regard to scheduling apps, whether it be for Instagram or Facebook, and anything that you could recommend, any types of tools?
Yeah, so look, there's a couple of things with that. So number one, there's tools, and I'll get to that in a second. But the other thing is that every client I talk to gets really overwhelmed with what to post and when. And one thing that we work really hard on with our clients is to try to create themes over a period of time in terms of what they're posting. So what we try to do, for example, at the moment we're working with a waste company, a regional waste company. So there's so much you can talk about with them. We can talk about what we're going to recycle. We can talk about green waste. We can talk about hard rubbish. We can, you know, all sorts of really fun subjects. But what we're trying to do is not overwhelm ourselves. So we're nailing it by saying, okay, for the first quarter of the year, so for the financial year, so July, August, September, our quarterly theme is going to be around green waste. So every week we're going to have at least one post around green waste, and we are going to educate people and engage them and empower them to create positive change in their green waste habits. So we know that every week we have to get something up around green waste. So it streamlines our thinking and doesn't make us go, oh, it's Tuesday, I've got to post something. What the hell am I going to do? But then we also have a monthly theme sitting under that. So then we go hard on something monthly as well. So we know over those 3 months, every week we've got something really specific to green waste, but every month we're changing to a hyper-specific subject as well. So it might be around kids and green waste. So for July, it's all around how can you educate your kids for the future on green waste. And for August, it might be around the elderly. So if you see an elderly person because they've just mowed every lawn and verge available to them, trying to drag their bin out the front and looking like they can't manage it out there, go and help your neighbour and drag their green waste out, because that bin's only going to fill up. So we look at having themes, and we have them either monthly, quarterly, and in some cases even annually. And that helps streamline your thinking and not overwhelm you with what to be posting and when. And you can usually come up with your themes by going, what is my business goal for this quarter? You know, if it's to sell more of one particular product, that's your theme. Or if you know you've got a particular product or service that's extremely popular, it might be growing that one. So yeah, there's a few different things to do with that. Now, in terms of scheduling tools, we have tried a lot. Our favorite that we've landed on and we're using and loving and still loving right now is called Later, Later, just later.com. I think it is, Jess, is that right? Yep, she's giving me the thumbs up, later.com. I said I've got to phone a friend here next to me. My actual social media guru, Jess, is out here helping me. So Later's our favourite. We've used Hootsuite as well, which is really quite popular, but it doesn't work for us as well. It's a little bit too clunky for what we need. But then in saying that, you know, if you are just managing one business and multiple platforms, it could work really well. But we've got somewhere in the space of 22 different social media clients that we're looking after as well. So we need something that's really simple to follow, really neat, and can map out months and months of work at a time for us. I know Sprout Social is really good. So that's another one you could think of. But look, I would just say take the free monthly trials, test them out and see what works for you, because everyone's working systems and everyone's understanding of tech is different. In the same way that we learn differently, the way that you guys are going to interact with those scheduling systems are going to be different to the way that we use them. But look, you know, Later is my favourite. We've recommended it to a few of our clients now, and we love it. So that would be my suggestion, and I don't get a commission from them.
Beautiful. What we'll do is we can grab some links to those as well and distribute them afterwards based on your recommendations there. So that's great. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to jump ahead a little bit and just ask you a little bit about tips for creating content, making it more engaging, interactive, and I guess what you actually find is the most effective forms of media for communication in 2020.
Yeah, look, it's a really interesting thing because you can't really assume anything. The things that go viral and the things that are really popular these days, they're always a surprise. There's a few key elements in terms of creating great content. So let's say, for example, we're talking about just putting social media content up. You know, there's a couple of things are where you can try to have a sense of humour. The world is very serious, especially right now. So if you can bring some humour and some fun and some lightheartedness, especially to Australian consumers who it's very palatable for them to have fun with different things, then absolutely use things that have a sense of humour. In terms of content and creating things that get lots of attention, try to be really unique. That is the key. Unique and authentic and real. People are a little bit sick of influencers and glossy filtered images. You know, there's only so many women in a bikini that's riding up their bum on a beach somewhere with a drone photo that we can see before we get a little bit sick about it. So you don't need to do what everyone else is doing in terms of the imagery that you are providing. And really interestingly, at the National Prayer Conference we went to in Melbourne in November last year, they were talking about what's happening in trends in terms of social media and digital marketing and digital content. And the absolute key takeaway, and this is coming out of the States, is around authenticity. And so you've even got massive brands like Prada, like McDonald's and KFC, and a few big ones like that who are going totally almost a little bit retro and back to being super authentic, super real, taking away the gloss. A lot of them aren't using even models anymore, you know, in what we know as a traditional model. They're trying to bring in people from minorities, people with different backgrounds, different capabilities, different genders, all of those sorts of things. So anything like that, you get away from the gloss, get away from the perfect, and try to be really authentic. Globally, people are responding to that far better than the generic gloss that we're seeing absolutely everywhere. So I would say have fun, be authentic, and try to be as unique as you possibly can. Really interestingly, something that I saw blow up on Facebook the other night, a friend of mine who is a metal fabricator out at MIPO has created this brand new grilling mechanism. And he popped it up on Facebook thinking, oh, I just want to get a bit of an indication as to whether people would like this, what they'd pay for it. And within 4 hours, I think he had 6,500 views just of his video of him mucking around with this new bespoke meat grilling tool that he'd created. Now, he would have had no idea that that was going to go as well as what it has. And I haven't looked at the data 2 days later to see where it's at. But that product is going to sell hundreds, if not thousands, before Christmas, I would say, because it is incredibly unique and it's completely authentic in the way that it's filmed. And it's very Australian. He's literally out in the middle of a paddock showing the video and totally unexpected. So you can try to be as perfect and as polished as you want, but trying to be real is far better.
Beautiful. We do have a question from Laura in the chat in regard to content. She's wondering if you're finding stories versus posts to be better on Instagram, or should you be doing both? And also in regard to pictures versus videos as posts. So do you have any recommendations around those types of content differentiation?
Look, it depends on who you are. Go and have a look at the latest stats on Instagram users and Instagram stories users, and you can just Google it online and it will tell you. But anecdotally, I can tell you that millennials are the biggest audience using stories. And in terms of Instagram especially, it's still that 16 to 45-year-old females who are likely to be on there. So if it's the Laura that I think it is, then yes, you should definitely be using stories because you're going to find your mums on there. The other thing is as well, I would use photos and videos. They both serve a really great purpose. Videos, you can get so much more into them, obviously, and you can really humanize yourself. So if it's you or Stacey talking to video, you guys can start to build relationships with your consumers, and that's what videos are fantastic for. You can humanize yourself, you can build your personality, your brand personality, and you can get a lot more out there. But photos are also great, and they also serve a purpose because there's nothing like capturing a really great moment, you know, a nanosecond, and then putting that up there. But you're also, your photo might not necessarily be a typical photo, it might be a graphic as well. So if you've got a great infographic, you know, I don't love inspirational quotes, but you know, that's the kind of thing that you could add in there if it's really relevant to what you're doing, or if it's a funny one that might get people interested, a job ad, you know, all those sorts of things that have got text across them. I would say stories are fantastic, and there's really no limit to what you can do on stories, although I wouldn't go as far as, Constant Hall and M. Rusciano and stick 45 up, because people just skip past it. Unless you want to get into vlogging, then, you can set it up and use it for that. But look, for most people, they should be doing both, because what goes into your feed is seen by quite a different audience to what sits into your stories. So some people still don't know stories really even exists, and they don't engage with it. Just because young people do and educated people and tech savvy people do doesn't mean everyone does. And so even for the tourism page that we manage, we have totally different audiences who look at our feed versus our stories. So we often do the same on both, or we really specifically do stuff for millennials on our stories and for older people on our feed.
I will just kind of shift a little bit into, I suppose, a really prevalent cutting topic that is really in the news cycle at the moment, and that's around COVID. So we did have a question come in advance around what kind of narrative people should be using at the moment and communicating. Is there messages on social media audiences that they might be tired of hearing at the moment? I know that you did do a blog post on your website, which we can also link in, around some do's and don'ts during this time. Do you just want to speak to how we can still communicate effectively during these times?
Yeah, look, it's a really interesting one, and COVID's a place that is completely uncharted. So you've got to remember that, whatever you do is brand new, and you're not, unless you're a real asshole, you're not going to do anything wrong, because people are generally pretty forgiving during this time. Most rational people are anyway, but that communication is even more important, especially in the digital space right now with COVID, because we are not passing pamphlets around, and we are not picking up print media, and we are not doing a number of different things. Our behaviours have changed dramatically. So our appetite to get our information from digital sources, and especially from social media, is at the highest level it has ever been. So there's an opportunity there for businesses, but there's also a responsibility there from organisations to communicate via those platforms as well. So, for example, I work with a lot of local government agencies, so we've had more mayors than ever doing live videos on Facebook than we ever had before, because people aren't getting that FaceTime with them. And now it's becoming a bit more normal, so they're thinking they're going to keep doing that sort of stuff long term. But look, the messages I put out at the start of COVID were probably a little bit different to what I would be recommending now, because that was more around the immediacy of when the pandemic was ramping up and what businesses had to do to survive at that point. But in terms of how you can be working on that now, number one, you want to reassure people that you are following COVID safe plans. So you don't have to give them every piece of policy detail that you've got in place to look after them, but you just have to reassure them that you're doing the right thing, basically, so that they know if they want to book something with you or if they want to purchase something with you, they're safe. Don't give them your whole policy, just tell them that you've got a COVID plan. Here are the 3 key elements, and think about those things that are going to be the touch points for them if they're coming into a salon with you, coming into a meeting with you, or whatever it might be like that. That's most prevalent to the actual client or customer, less you. Secondly, don't go too hard on the "my life is so hard because of COVID" piece, because we've all heard it, and everyone's taking a hit in some way, shape or form from COVID. So if you want to do that, stick to your personal page, go and do it over there, less of it on your business page, because pity parties are not great for your brand, and that's the brutal honesty of it. If you have been absolutely slammed and you think there's a really good news piece in terms of your dip and your recovery, then absolutely you can tell that story. But if you are having a whinge and asking people to come and spend money with you, because if they don't, you'll go under, then I would just think twice about the way that you want to communicate that, because there's a lot of people who did it and a lot of people who just look like whingers when everyone else was getting on with it. So it's a really harsh reality, but it's a way to protect your business brand. The other thing as well is to say, even if, and I said this to businesses especially a couple of months ago, is even when you are closed down, you still want to keep the dream alive for people. So a really great way to do that is keep those followers who you've got on social media connected with what you're coming back with, or what you're doing in the downtime to make your service or product better when you reopen again, or when we can come back to, hosting you guys again. Here's how we're going to look after you. Here's how we're going to make you safe. Here's our new products that we've been developing in the off time, or here's the partnerships we've now got in place. So there's absolutely no reason, just because your business is closed down or you're working at a lower capacity, that you can't still be doing the same thing on social media, because people, the June long weekend proved it, they are ready to get out and do things and support small business and spend some money. So it's a really great time to be continuing to communicate quite regularly on social media. And the other thing that I probably didn't go into before, Catherine, that I think is really important, it's a rule of thumb for me when I'm talking to businesses that are selling products or services, is when you're posting, try not to sell all the time. Try to give people what they want. So if that's information, free information, if that's a chance to win something, if it's a funny joke, whatever it might be, give them something that they want and then sell to them. So my rule of thumb is sort of, if I'm working with a particular sales product, it's give, sell, give, sell. So we're basically warming people up before we sell to them, foreplay, as some people would call it. Give them what they want, and then you can try to get what you want.
Brilliant. I am conscious of time, and we are nearing the end of our webinar. So I do invite everyone to post any questions that they do have for Courtney before we do go today. I do just have a few quick closing questions while anyone does want to ask any questions in the chat box. My first is, because we are a networking group, so I am just going to plant this little bit of seed that does go back to our personal development as well as professional development, because we've talked a lot about business development in that space. So this one's going to be a little bit more personal development focused, and that's whether you think that some of these key learnings that you've discussed today around businesses and their brands and messaging to remember is actually also important for us to do with our own personal professional brand as well. We live in a world that, we're so exposed essentially online. If we apply for a job or if we're going to a networking event to extend our business contacts, the first thing they do is they look us up on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, they maybe Google us. So I just want to know, I guess, a little bit of your opinion around our own personal marketing too.
Yeah. Look, it's a really good question. And look, again, it depends on who you are and what industry you're in. So if you are someone who's building a career in terms of leadership, and that can be across any industry, but if you are working towards leadership, then absolutely, LinkedIn is a platform that you should be on, and you should look really strong on, and you should be you should be engaging in that quite regularly if you're wanting to grow your career. Number two, you need to have at least something on LinkedIn, no matter who you are. If you're a plumber, if you're a teacher, if you are a superstar leader, project manager, you need to have just your basic job details, what you've done, what your education is on LinkedIn. So make sure you've got at least the basics. And again, I go back to, what are your personal career goals? So it's the same thing with your personal brand as with your business brand. So where do you want to go? What's your career goals? How can LinkedIn or a platform like LinkedIn or even your personal social media help you with that? So if you want to get into the social media world, then you probably need to be sitting on every single platform and looking damn good and looking like you know what you're doing on there, because that's a direct reflection of your capabilities. So for me, I'm recruiting at the moment. I stalk everyone who applies for my work on any platform that I possibly can. And if there's any red flags that go off for me, I don't even bother with them. So really important to make sure that you're not doing anything really silly on your social platforms if you are in that career space as well. The other thing in terms of LinkedIn that I think is absolutely vital, if you are trying to build your own personal brand and your career opportunities, is to share the tangible projects and wins that you are involved in. So, I mean, you can do some stuff around thought leadership and commentary on key issues and those sorts of things. And that's all nice. And that starts to kind of grow who you are. But when an employer or when other people are going, okay, how do I know that Catherine is who she says she is? Oh, she's been involved in this organisation winning this award, or she's been involved in this project that's got this major funding, or she's been involved in this project that's been able to deliver X, Y, Z. So it's about showing those continual wins, continual results, continual achievements on there, that then an employer or someone who's trying to what's the word I'm looking for, headhunt you, or if you're applying for a job and they go on there and they look for you, then it's absolute key in terms of looking really strong on there. But again, go back to your personal goals, reflect on what you want out of your career. There's also a really fine line to not try to oversell yourself, because for employers, they don't necessarily want to take on young people who want to go straight into management. And that's a really fine line for everyone to be aware of. So if there's someone out there saying that they are leadership material and they want to do this and they want to do that, but then we go back to their LinkedIn profile and it's telling us something different, or their commentary is saying, oh, perhaps this person might be a little bit too big for their boots, then we as Australians have this issue around tall poppy syndrome, and we go, I don't know if that's the type of person that I necessarily want to employ. So it's a really fine line, but just keep reflecting on your goals and just make sure that when you're posting on there, that it's serving a purpose that suits your career and your personal brand goals.
Beautiful. And what we can do at the end as well is, if anyone does want to advertise that they are doing some professional development by coming along today and listening to Courtney, we'll pop our initial slide back up that you can take a photo of. So we'll do that at the end too. We did just have 2 questions come in, so we'll try and quickly smash them out in a few minutes so that we can let everyone go. The first one is from Emily, just asking how far in advance you should be thinking about advertising and posting and getting people in before you actually open up your business.
Depends on who you are. It depends on what industry you're in. Look, I love people posting ahead and getting organised ahead, because it builds excitement, it builds anticipation. It's kind of the opportunity to get people amped up for what you've got. But you've got to also manage expectations with that as well. So let's say you're a beauty salon and you're saying you're going to have this premium service and there's so much excitement about what you're doing and can't wait to have you, but you really need to make sure then that what you're saying and the excitement that you're building, you can deliver on that at the time, because people are going to get really excited about it. But look, there's absolutely no reason you shouldn't be doing it. And in fact, yeah, I would strongly recommend it. Just make sure you don't oversell, because that first impression of people walking through the door or buying one of your products and services is absolute key to whether they come back or not. So make sure that that first experience when they come through the door, that's more important than anything else. But if you can get some lead time, and I would even say, probably 4 to 6 weeks, anything longer than that, and people are going to be a bit like, come on, when are you opening? When are you available? So 4 to 6 weeks probably isn't a bad idea. And that gives you then the time to build enough followers to then drive some sales or drive some conversions, whatever that might look like for you as well. So, if you give yourself 4 to 6 weeks, you are going to hopefully have a few hundred followers by then. that can then share what you're doing, build that excitement, start to get some forward bookings, or start to get people saving away for whatever product you're selling, or getting them thinking about where you might fit in their budgets, if that's the case. But don't go too far in advance unless you're, constructing a water park down on the river near the bridge. Then you can have 5 years advance notice. But if it's something small scale, I would say not too far, because then people will just get frustrated.
Yeah. And then we also have a question from Jonathan, just about what advice you would give to companies looking to rebrand.
Or get an expert on board, get an objective expert on board. So we will always pull in other experts for rebrands for support from them to get an objective outsider looking in, and that helps you guys get a really great feel for what your brand and product actually represents. So don't be afraid to spend some money on it. I know it's easy for me to say, but all of the companies I know who do a rebrand and they skimp, they go for the cheapest option, it never ends up well. And often they have to go back and start the process again because they're not happy with what they've got. Depending on what sort of organisation you are, I would say consult with your key stakeholders. That's absolutely vital, and surveying them and pulling that data and asking them, what are the greatest pieces of value that your organisation holds to them, because your brand should reflect that. So if you are let's say you're the RDA, for example, because we're doing this, we're funded by the RDA. If you're the RDA, then the absolute core value for me as a business owner is that they support business to do better in the region and to grow. So their branding and whether that's their look and feel or whether that's what's people saying about them when they're not in the room, has to be about how they're supporting my business or how I can get access to them to support my business. And it's the same that goes, if it's a photographer, for example, then a rebrand for them, I would go back and survey all of their past clients and say to them, what was the greatest thing that you liked about us? What was the absolute key? And if it was just because they were friendly and approachable and they made me feel comfortable, then all of your branding should reflect that. If that's what 90% of your consumers are saying, then that's what you want to go with. Or why did you choose us is another really great question. Would you recommend us? They're all the key pieces of data you want to try to find to help you shape your brand. But I would say do the work before you start drawing pretty pictures or coming up with mottos or anything like that. Go back, draw on reports you've got, draw on perception surveys, anything like that you can get a hold of, and look for keywords, look for like similar sentiments from different stakeholder groups, and you'll have a light bulb moment and it'll come to you. But pull in the experts, do the research, do the consultation.
Brilliant. What I'll do is I'll get Kate to pop up on the screen for everyone, just where everyone can actually find you, Courtney, and your business online. And I'll actually just finish by asking one question that I do just love to ask people. I hear this asked in podcasts and I'm a big fan of it, and that's just around what you define as success. This can be personal or professional, but if you could just give us that in 2 sentences.
Okay. Look, professional, I'm big on team. So if my team are happy and fulfilled and growing, then I'm really happy. And that generally translates into my clients being happy. If I'm happy and my staff are happy, then my clients are happy and we do better work. So for me, it's very much around, making people feel great. And whether that's my staff or my clients, that's success for me. And in my personal life, if I reflect back on business, then for me, success in running a business is about me being able to live the lifestyle that I want to live. So, and that's not necessarily about money, but that's about, for me, I've got 2 little kids. It's about flexibility. It's about being able to live and work in a regional community that I love. It's about being able to employ people so I can grow them. It's about those things that I really want out of my personal life. I can achieve them with the business that I've set up.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Courtney. We do appreciate your time and you sharing your knowledge with us. And also, I just want to take this opportunity to also thank everyone who did come along tonight for attending our webinar. I could probably talk to Courtney all day long, so it was a challenge to keep it within an hour, but we did it. It is the hour dot on the mark. Next week, we will have another webinar with Adrian from Collaborative Employment Solutions. He will be speaking on business development and planning. Thank you all again for coming and attending, and I'll actually get Kate to pop back up our first slide as well, just in case you guys did want to take a photo for promotional and branding yourself online as well. Thank you.